So to begin our session today, we're going to start with a case study. And I would like to introduce Mary Inman, who will be presenting the case study. She's a partner in the San Francisco office of Whistleblower Partners LLP and a veteran whistleblower lawyer who's worked exclusively representing whistleblowers for the past 26 years under the increasing array of U.S. and international reward programs. Among others, she has assisted Theranos whistleblower Tyler Schultz and Facebook whistleblower Frances Haugen. So Mary, I'd like to turn it over to you.
Thank you so much, Diane, and thank you to Donato and Costantino and you for inviting me and convening this amazing group of people on a really important topic. So I am going to do a case study. I'm going to cheat a little bit. Instead of looking at one case, I'm hopefully going to talk about a number of leaks, many of which are familiar to you, but hopefully I'm going to illuminate some pieces about some of these leaks that you may not know and sort of the reverberating effects that they have had. So to start with the Panama Papers, we are privileged today to have Simon Bowers with us. And the Panama Papers, to me, is a seminal moment in journalism that I'm sure that Simon is going to talk to us about in terms of someone within, we assume, the law firm Mossack Fonseca, leaked information, an enormous trove of data, so much so that the journalists at Süddeutsche Zeitung, Bastian and Friedrich Obermeier, I didn't really know how to handle the volume and really turned what I understood to be traditional journalism on its head by embarking on a very collaborative effort. So instead of what journalists traditionally do of holding the story to themselves, it was a shared endeavor where this information went out through ICIJ so that all different parts of the globe could be looking at a journalist from all four corners. Part of ICIJ could be looking at this information and analyzing it. So it really revolutionized, to me, a model that Simon can talk about more of how we now have much more collaborative journalistic efforts when we have enormous dumps of data like we saw with the Panama Papers. Another thing you may not know about the Panama Papers is that the whistleblower, although they are anonymous, and that's been very important to their basically their protection and their safety, they have been interviewed by the Obermeiers, and they have basically said that they've been cooperating with the German government. And that they've been helping the various provinces within and counties within Germany to prosecute people for tax evasion. What's interesting is there's actually a lawsuit in the United States right now where the Panama Papers whistleblower has sued the German government for reneging on an agreement to pay him, her, they a percentage of the monies that they recovered, which is sort of in the American style model. Believe it or not, the German government, even though they don't have a formal program, has been known to pay financial incentives to whistleblowers. So we don't know who this person is, but we do know that they've received some money from various German entities, and now they didn't get the full amount. So you can be tracking that case if you're interested to see what happens there. So it's really the Panama Papers, I think, that really set the stage for the continuation and the follow-on for multiple leaks. So in addition to ICIJ, I think it's really important to notice that there are also consortiums of journalists, including ARIJ, the Arab Reporters for Investigative Journalism, who've started to follow the ICIJ model, recognizing that in countries where maybe English is not a first language, it may be very daunting for someone who is going to be a leaker to leak information that's in Arabic to someone across the globe. And so we've started to see ARIJ has a function called iARIJ, which is really a whistleblowing function, a platform to allow people to leak information if you are trying to leak information in Arabic for obviously countries in the MENA and other regions. So it's very interesting that there's been even a lot of tech that has grown up around this. We've got Glenn Sorrentino with us today to talk about how, now that we know that there's these huge treasure troves of data, how do people safely drop this information and provide it to journalistic outlets and other places. So there's some tech that's called Secure Drop and other technologies that have grown up to allow people to basically have the logistical hurdle of getting this information safely to journalistic outlets. So I think that's another interesting, it spawned a whole cottage industry of whistleblowing tech as well. So moving along, I think we also alluded to LuxLeaks. I think it's really important to talk about LuxLeaks here because what people may not know is that Antoine Deltour was one of the whistleblowers there who worked at PwC and exposed a lot of information very similar to the Panama Papers in terms of tax avoidance schemes and evasion schemes. And he also worked collaboratively with another whistleblower, Raphael Halle, who was a journalist. And what's interesting in that history is that is what actually has led to and was the impetus for the EU whistleblowing directive. So it was how Antoine was treated, since he was a French national but working in Luxembourg, how he was treated very, very, very differently based on where he was from. So under the French whistleblowing law at that time, he would have been protected for his whistleblowing activity, whereas in Luxembourg, he would have been jailed. So it is what inspired the European Union to say we need to have a floor across all the 27 member states where whistleblowers are treated similarly. As it shouldn't be dependent on the vagaries of where you're working versus where you're a national in terms of how you're treated. So again, this is another wonderful benefit that came to us from the LuxLeaks leaks. I wanted to talk just very quickly about another leak that people may not be as familiar with. It's also borne a lot of fruit, and that's called the FinCEN files. And that is something that happened in the United States. And there were a number of journalistic outlets that helped leak this information. And it's a little bit different in terms of the woman who leaked the information actually came from inside the Treasury Department, the FinCEN, the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network section of the Treasury Department in the United States. And her name was Natalie Edwards, and she turned over thousands of suspicious activity reports that showed a trend of a number of financial institutions regulated by the Treasury Department, basically slow walking a lot of the reporting that they're required to do to prevent money laundering. And it was really her information that spawned new legislation in the United States that inspired what's called the Anti-Money Laundering Act, and that actually has created inside the Treasury Department in the United States an Office of the Whistleblower that allows whistleblowers to bring information about violations of the U.S. Bank Secrecy Act, and that it's actually since been expanded to sanctions law violations. So again, a leaker having a really vital impact and showing sort of the importance. So these leakers are leading to a really game-changing legislation. And the last one I'll talk about is Facebook files. On the Facebook files is a treasure trove of data that was leaked by whistleblower Frances Haugen. And what I think is really interesting, and especially to the judges here from Italy and just to academics more generally, is that this data has now become available and is being housed in Harvard. So Frances Haugen, in her work at Facebook, was able to amass a large amount of data that really showed what we all know to be some of the really problematic practices that go on at social media companies like Facebook in terms of targeting on Instagram and other social media platforms, content that was really very problematic and sort of body dysmorphic for young women and other things. And so it is that kind of information that now sits in repositories at esteemed American institutions that everyone can now use and draw upon. So these leaks have gone on to have lives of their own. I can tell you that we've got obviously Ashu Sharma here from the investigators, and we know that a lot of people use the Panama Papers trove of data now in any kind of investigation. So these leaks go on to have many shelf lives. And it's now, to me, I think, fairly remarkable that they go and sit in major institutions of higher learning as well. So I guess the last thing I would say is that we've also started to see the rise of organizations like Global Leaks and Baltic Leaks that are other places to facilitate this kind of conduct. So there are regional leaks organizations that come out of the the parent organization of Global Leaks that are encouraging leaks around the globe. So it is very much I don't know if there's Italy leaks. Priscilla may be able to tell us that. But it is really a global phenomenon, and it's a privilege to have a lot of the people on this in the symposium with us today who were sort of the people at the front of the spear that led these efforts. So hopefully that gives you a little bit of a flavor for how important these leaks have been and the really important impacts that they've had legislatively, journalistically, technology-wise. I think we're going to get to touch on a lot of that today. So thank you, everybody. I hope that whetted your appetites for what's to come.
Thank you very much, Mary. And you're right. I feel like the multifaceted case study you presented really touches upon many of the topics we're going to cover both in our first and second session. So thank you very much for offering that. So